Before we wrap, Alec, what's your if you had a prediction on next week, Michigan, Ohio State, who would you lean? Let's say that. I'm not gonna say favor. Who would
There's
you
nobody,
who would
man.
you lean?
I knew that I was expecting this question to come up. Okay, so I guess I've entered the season like most people and expected Ohio State to kind of be a force to be reckoned with. And when they've played really well, we've kind of seen them be that for a lot of the season, excluding like the games that they decided they didn't really want to show up or they were bored. I think Ohio State's the more talented team. I think Ohio State's probably the better team most days. But with that being said, like Michigan having to go on the road only adds to that difficulty. I do think that the outcome of this game could largely depend on the weather of the game, which kind of sucks. Like I don't want that to have an impact on the outcome of the game. Like they generally want the better team to win. I'll side Ohio State because the game's at the Horseshoe. I also think that there's an intrinsic motivation for Ohio State that they have circled November 26th since whatever day of the year it was last year that they lost to Michigan, because it's like, while Michigan fans, correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, view losing to Ohio State as being unacceptable, like it's kind of become expected almost to lose to Ohio State over the last 15 years or so. Whereas like at Ohio State, if you lose to Michigan, like if Ryan Day loses to Michigan, it's going to be real uncomfortable for him going into the 2023 season. Like it wasn't ever really getting that uncomfortable for Jim Harbaugh because he lost to Ohio State. Like it got uncomfortable for him because they lost a lot of games in 2020. So I'll side with Ohio State. I think it's going to be an all-time game. I think it's probably the biggest game in the series history since 06 when it was number 1 versus number 2. And I will say this. I think there's a real chance that each team gets into the playoff, which I think would be awesome for the Big Ten. As a league that hasn't had 2 teams in the playoff yet, I think that'd be sweet to get them both in there.
Okay.
I wanted to speak really quickly to that. I won't say that it was acceptable to lose Ohio State, but like you said, Alec, it happened so often that it was like, well, like it felt like let's just have a puncher's chance versus them. Like you always knew that they had the one up on us. They have the talent. There was a little bit of a talent gap, and you just felt like let's be competitive. Let's have a puncher's chance. But what made it bad was that what amplified the Ohio State losses was the fact that Harbaugh was having other demons that he couldn't conquer. Right, he couldn't win for a while a ranked game on the road, and it was struggling locally here versus MSU. That really aided, like created that intensity. I think now that we beat them, I don't think that it's flipped. If you're a realistic Michigan fan, I don't think it's flipped from we beat them now, we should beat them every year. I think every Michigan fan that's understanding of the game, you still probably have the understanding that Ohio State still probably has the edge on us. You think about year-to-year recruiting and development for the most part. But I think that now what last year has shown, I think this year as well, if you've watched both teams closely, is that there is a chink in the armor of Ohio State, and that Michigan has a unique formula that can potentially take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think in previous years, I think lately Ohio State hasn't had quite the physicality they've had before. And I think Michigan does have that. So that physicality can kind of help close that gap on the football field, where if whoever can be more efficient with their game, it's going to win. If that makes sense, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And I guess I'd like to say here too, like when you look at what these two teams have been this year, like I've kind of gone back and forth in my head where, okay, maybe Michigan's better than Ohio State, or okay, no, I think Ohio State's better. Like it kind of changes on a week-over-week basis. Where even like last year up to the game, I felt like Ohio State was better. And then Michigan just physically dominated them. Like they didn't need to throw the ball to win. I mean, they throw it 4 times in the second half. Like they just kicked the crap out of them for 4 quarters. And maybe that happens again this year. And I wouldn't be shocked if it did, because there's times where you watch Ohio State's offense and it's like, why can't they run the ball? They have offensive linemen. Paris Johnson is incredible. And obviously Ohio State's dealing with some injury issues on the offensive line with or not on the offensive line, excuse me, at running back with Trayvon Henderson. Hasn't really played much this entire season. Mayan Williams goes out last week. Like, there's reason to believe that Michigan can go in here and win the game. And for as much as people like to look at like the Ohio State side and say the motivation factor for them to win this game is so large because they lost it last year. It's at the Horseshoe. It's going to be CJ Stroud's last time there. All these different things, right? Like, you put all that together, and it's like Ohio State has so much anger built up for this game. Michigan,
that crowd's going to be absolutely vicious. Like,
Michigan has it too, though, because Michigan can flip. Like, if Michigan wins, don't you feel like it kind of flips the script on everything you just said about this? Where since 2006, it's been like, okay, Ohio State's going to win this game. Besides for a couple years that was close, like 2016, and then whatever year you want to talk about. But if Michigan wins again,
like with back-to-back years, like, oh man,
yeah, it's gonna feel like something flipped, and it's gonna
even if it isn't all the way true, it's going to feel that way. Like, even if it's not like, well, Michigan's the better program, it's going to feel that way.
It's going to be a look in the mirror moment for Ohio State if it's because they have more talent, they have better players, they recruit better. So if that's not how you're going to beat them, what do you need to do to beat them? Is going to be what it is for Ohio State if they don't win on a week from Saturday.
It's a philosophical thing, and I think and Des and I talked about this at the beginning of the year. Des and I'm sure you will recall, is that we were saying that this is a great opportunity for Michigan because it's a chance if you're able to do what you did last year. You beat Ohio State, you win the Big Ten. This could be like that changing of the guard moment where Ohio State's they've been the king of the Big Ten. Right, but if you get them 2 years in a row, once at home and once in their house with everything on the table, start to flip things a little bit. And what I think it will show is that no, Michigan is not getting as many 5-star kids as Ohio State is able to get, but philosophically, Michigan has found a way to beat them. And I think this is where Ryan Day will find himself under fire. Will be like, hold on a second, what can he say? What excuse will he have? You know, on paper, you have probably more, high caliber talent than Michigan does. Not by a lot. We're not Wisconsin or something like that, but you have more 5-star kids on paper. How have you been losing the last 2 weeks? Is it physicality? Is it mental? So, no, I think this is a grand opportunity for Michigan. I think it's a heightened sense of awareness by Ohio State that we have to get this game. And I think that crowd is going to be absolutely on fire, like on fire.
It's probably a good thing they don't share a tunnel there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So before we wrap, I wanted to get your guys' quick comments on this. GOJ, thanks for the comment. He always tunes in. It says, Ohio State told y'all a story. Ohio State will rush for over 200 yards against Michigan. They're going to blow Michigan out. Now, I'll give my 2 cents. They're not rushing for 200 yards. They may blow out Michigan. I don't think anything is off the table in a rivalry game, especially one of this magnitude, but that's not happening. Dre, your thoughts on that?
I'm surprised. GOJ he's here every week, and he's normally a pretty measured person. But I think it's
getting close. It's boiling. It's boiling.
It's getting close to the game, and I think his Buckeye blood is starting to come out a little bit. No. I mean, you don't flip the switch like that. That's just not going to happen. You've been struggling to run a football all year, and you're not going to just all of a sudden flip the switch and then run a football well for first one of the best rush defense in the country. It's just not going to happen. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a formula for you to blow out Michigan. Look, I've said this. Michigan plays on a razor's edge, especially in the way they play in the first half. If somehow Ohio State gets off to a hot start and offensively they're, because what Michigan's really good at is Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, is fantastic with second half adjustments. Well, how big of a hole does Michigan get in the first half before they actually get to those adjustments, right? If you find yourself down 21-10, 11 points down at the Horseshoe, that's a death sentence. So, and that's a formula for now you're out of whack, right? Now you got to pass the ball more. And then Michigan's in an uncomfortable situation. You go 3-and-out a couple times, and then the game can get away from you. So it's definitely possible for this game to get away from Michigan. I'm not saying that can't happen, but to do it in that nature that GOJ is saying, that's just not going to happen. It has to be another.
Alec, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this game could go either way, or any of three ways. I think Ohio State could blow out Michigan. I think Michigan could blow out Ohio State, and I think it could be a one-score game that's decided in overtime. I do think Ohio State could do that, though. Like,
Rush for 200?
yeah, I do think they could.
Okay.
If both Williams and Henderson are healthy, the offensive line has a good day because it is a good offensive line. I know it's not a Joe Moore finalist. Like, there are 5 offensive linemen on that group who could probably play in the NFL. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they did it. Would I be surprised? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I do think it's gonna be a close game. Like, before the season started, like, my friend and I would talk about this, and I was like, yeah, I think we were both like, Ohio State's going by like 600. But then, like, as I started like get into it more, and I was doing prep on Michigan as I was still covering Illinois before I moved over to K-State, it was like, I think Michigan's gonna be undefeated going into this game. I was like, I think Ohio State's gonna be undefeated going into this game, and lo and behold, we've got 2 total games until it happens.
Don't mess it up, guys. Don't mess it up. Oh man, it's gonna be exciting. I actually hope your last scenario does happen. Like, seeing this game go into overtime
awesome.
would be it'd be awesome just because it is the most watched game in college football. Like, that would be incredible. Like, the entire world is going to be watching that game. But
I mean, there's a playoff berth on the line for this game.
Right.
Assuming they don't. Assuming the team doesn't do something unprecedented and lose to a Big Ten West team in the Big Ten championship game. And if Iowa ends up there, like, Ohio State beat them 54-10, and they played like garbage in the first half. So, like, no one in the Big Ten West is beating one of these 2 teams in Indianapolis. So
it's not happening. It's a real letdown where, like, literally the last game of your regular season is so much more important and so much. And a much higher caliber game to your conference championship, and like, compared to SEC title game, that's not really the case. Like,
no, it's not.
Like, literally, it's a big letdown. Like, for either team, it's like, man, we just played a war. And now it's kind of like, this is the championship game. Like, it's kind of like, but no, man, I think we're in store for a great couple of weeks of football. I'm excited to get to the big house. We'll be there, guys. To see this game. Want to see Michigan take care of business, and
follow our. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I will probably post where we are on the channel, just in case anybody is there. I think John had mentioned that he'll be there. One Scoop John. So yeah, please subscribe. Keep an eye out. We'll be there. I don't know how phone service is, so if it doesn't get posted, please don't go crazy.